Islam, Monarch.
Islam, sir. How are you?
I'm alright.
Yes.
As far as when cause like in most nations, people need to be ready for whenever a national disaster could be a threat, whenever it be at a local, regional, or national level. Some people want to know how is the Amexem-Moor-Empire prepared to handle things of whether it be of nature or other type of things that would be of the disaster type of preparedness.
We've discussed during other interviews elements of what you're asking now. I guess you want me to answer in an all-encompassing manner.
Yeah, a
Hmm.
nice little totality of it.
Well, it's a very, very broad field. What I can say is the Amexem-Moor-Empire Minister for the Interior, Grand Noble Miriam Al-Atman El-Day, she commands what we refer to as our emergency crisis operations. But we get things, we get a handle on them, and then we resolve each issue there in that crisis. The foreign venue has to be referred to as, well, some foreign venues have to be called emergency management agencies, or some call they for a FEMA-like situation in other jurisdictions. Um, we have referred to as ESA, the Emergency Services Agency, which is our version of fire suppression, emergency crisis management. Instead of having every department, all 12 departments and 39 departments put together crisis operations, we have one primary department that manages all of that for all 12 departments and 39 sub-departments, in conjunction with the Imperial Customs Force, um, where the Imperial Customs Force has supervisory control over a wide variety of things because they have the constitutional mandate to restore order. And then you have the ESA, the Emergency Services Agency, that has the managerial component. Instead of having multiple press conferences to make sure everyone has the information from multiple departments, we have one department that handles that, and it's all done by way of the Department for the Interior, specifically by way of the Minister for the Interior. And so, for example, Operation Sister Tyrone, when we were dealing with our response to Hurricane Katrina and how we can take care of our kith and kindred all throughout that particular region of North Amexem, ESA coordinated everything, and the Imperial Customs Force provided security and provided one HIPPO unit, which is basically one of our land mobility units to transport supplies and staff onto the ground to make sure that folks who needed help got help as best as we were able within our means. And so we dispatched out supplies and material for those who were suffering under an operation that was an ESA operation. And ESA tapped a regional ambassador who now is our grand ambassador to see after the operations in terms of the diplomacy and everything else that was needed because we did have an interjurisdictional matter in that regard. Um, since at the time we didn't have any operations on the ground where we were going and didn't have any operations near where where the where they needed assistance, which means we had to establish some type of connection with folks who had connection on the ground that would make sure that whatever supplies that we were deploying would in fact get into the hands of those who needed it. And we had to find someone that was reputable, and they had to sign for the supplies, and we had to make sure that we had follow-up available so we could make sure that the supplies were actually properly provided to those who were in need. And that did occur, and we have reports to that effect that folks can get copies of. It's no problem to email it out. Effectively, what we did was we were going to go to Nation of Islam, who had a particular mosque over in misnomer Baton Rouge. But we had secured that location, but we couldn't verify that there would be a party there that would receive our away team that was bringing forth the supplies. So since we couldn't guarantee that the supplies can get on the ground and get dispatched there, we had information coming to us that they had moved several thousand to New Atlantis. As a consequence of that, of all those folks that have relocated into New Atlantis voluntarily, on their own, or with assistance, we took all the supplies to Nation of Islam's Southern Command, which is in New Atlantis. I think that's their mosque number 15. And the away team arrived, and Umi Alice was the party who greeted our now Grand Ambassador upon the arrival, and the captain was, the FY captain was Sharif Muhammad, and the lieutenant was on scene, but I don't recall who that was. And they received the inspector, who was the commanding officer from the Imperial Customs Force, who was also the pilot aboard the land vessel, the Hippo unit that we dispatched down, with a little more than 20 pounds in supplies. And their lieutenant and staff, and the inspector, and our staff, our temporary agents on the ground there in the New Atlantis, they unloaded the land vessel. The Grand Ambassador now provided them with the manifest of what was aboard, what they had just gotten into their possession, provided them with the receipts. They signed off on multiple copies, one for them and one for us, and a third copy that we used for deposit. And that was the culmination of phase 1, or the first revolution of Operation Sister Alarm. Subsequently after that, other parties were relocated into Al Portia, misnomer in the foreign venue as something else. And there were about 60 of them, 50 of them, somewhere in there, I can't remember anymore. And our land vessel was disabled, and so we weren't able to take the additional supplies southward until we could secure another means of transport. We were in the process of doing that when we found out that they had relocated those folks so close to the capital city. So we said, well, I'll tell you what, we will see after those that's here, and we did that. And we have second and third revolutions of Operation Sister reports available to document the things that we did do, and there are receipts signed for those particular supplies, and we have all that. Internally, the Imperial Water Agency, the Department of Federal Logistics, Imperial Customs Force, so the first 3 operations that ESA, by way of, or the Minister for the Interior by way of ESA, begins to say, oh look, we have to begin to secure all supplies, all water supplies, and we got to get operational underway right away. It was the first thing that we do. All of our folks know the protocols and procedures internally that we do for emergency purposes. Then what we have to do to make sure our folks survive. I won't go into particulars for obvious reasons, to protect our folks, maintain our security. But our folks know if there is a major level event where there's catastrophic situations, from economic disaster, from natural disaster, our folks know that there's prime directives, there are protocols, procedures they must follow. And everyone knows what role they have to play to make sure that our folks survive. And we engage in whatever's necessary to make sure our folks stay at full preparation level, so that if we have to go at a moment's notice, we can do that. I really want to answer some of what you're asking me, but let's just say you don't tell everything. Amexem-Moor-Empire nationals are trained, and they do train. They know what they're supposed to do. What I can tell you is you should always have your supplies in multiple locations. You should always be prepared to survive under the worst case scenario. You can't assume and presume that things are going to happen when the weather is just great. You have to be prepared for worst case scenario. We are a separate and distinct jurisdiction, which means we have to do the obligation and responsibility to see after on our own terms. And we do that, which is why we have a fully functional 12 department, 39 department government structure by and for the Moors.
So the lesson here today is to expect the unexpected, and just like the Boy Scouts, the Moors are always prepared.
Aye, very well said. That's about as far as I'm prepared to go on the subject that we've covered. And perhaps we can cover other things at another time. So Dallas, I thank you for your question. I'll say peace and love to you. It's good to see you again. Islam.
Islam to you.